Alrighty, so this is going to be a bit of an interesting video because not only the fact that I am doing the news of the week episode, but I'm also kind of doing a quick preview and quick review at the same time. I am going to do a quick preview of the Friday game between NYCFC versus Orlando City because, since is the only game that's happening on Friday. I might as well just kind of get it out of the way in this news of the week episode and basically previewing the rest of the weekend's game tomorrow. But I'll also do a quick recap and a review of the USA versus Panama game that just finished about an hour ago. I wasn't able to watch the game, but I did listen to the game while I was driving back from home. And because of the fact I'm driving, obviously I can't take notes because that would be kind of reckless of me trying to take notes while basically listening at the game and also driving at the same time. So instead, I'll just kind of do a little bit of a quick recap of what I hear throughout the game. And yeah, the US is in trouble in terms of them potentially not making out of the group because yeah, coming into Copa America, I mentioned what the US need to do in order to make it out of the group. They need to get a win against Bolivia, which they did exactly that. They need to get a result against Panama. Um, specifically maybe a win. They didn't do that. In fact, not only they didn't get a win in this game, they didn't even draw this game. They lost this game against Panama. Now, obviously, I know that there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be solely blaming this on Greg Berhalter, and it's understandable because Greg Berhalter has been getting a lot of heat coming in to this tournament, and I think after this game, and especially if the U.S. does not make it to the knockout stage, yeah, I have a feeling the fans would absolutely not only be calling for his heads, but maybe it's going to force the U.S. Soccer Federation hand that they probably are going to have to fire him because so bad. But obviously, I think when you look at this loss, it's a combination of things. Yes, obviously, Greg Berhalter is going to get a lot of criticism. One of the biggest criticism I think coming out of this game is the fact that they just that they look like they were overwhelmed when they were down to 10 men in this game. Now, obviously, the other blame, of course, is Tim Bear, of course, getting himself sent off here, and that yeah, in the day of age of VAR, and I know that we have seen this before in CONCACAF where just kind of maybe players getting into each other and then if one player decided to put a hands, maybe you can get away with it. But obviously this is not a CONCACAF tournament. This is a CONMEBOL tournament, and obviously what Tim Weah did in that sequence to a Panama player where he kind of put his hands in the face of a player. Just yeah, that you can't do that. So unsurprisingly, that was a red card. But again, the fact that the U.S. become very defensive after they went down to 10 man in this one again. I can understand why you want to maybe be a little bit defensive because you're down a man for the rest of the game. But this is not like they're playing against Uruguay or against one of the best CONMEBOL team. This is against Panama, so I was very surprised the fact the U.S. dropped off a lot and become very compacted and kind of on a defensive shape. And this is even after when they when they took the lead, maybe I would be understandable, but obviously that lead that they got from Flo Balogun shot, which was an amazing goal that Balogun of course scored. But obviously them conceding a goal just four minutes later. Even then, I can understand that if they were taking the lead, but I just don't understand when they were basically not having the lead. It just kind of almost like they parked the bus throughout the game and hope that they can get out of it with a draw. Even though again you're playing against Panama, and like I said, Panama is not a team that is a world beater by any means of necessary. And that in other words, I would say that the simple way to kind of summarize what Greg Berhalter tried to do, or at least what I thought the U.S. did after they went down to 10 men, is that they basically got scared and that they trying to bunker so that they hope that they don't concede a goal and then basically lose the game. And how many times I talk about when you decided to play that kind of style, that kind of negative style of soccer, and just kind of playing scare like that, you're not gonna get a result. And more times or not, it's not going to end up well. And unsurprisingly, eventually that pressure buckle in the latter part of the second half. Now, obviously, I think the other blame I would say is the fact that the defense Yeah, coming into the tournament, I was very concerned about the defense. I mean, when you look at those friendly matches, them shipping off 5 goals to Colombia, that was absolutely horrendous. And then, of course, yes, they got a 1-1 draw against Brazil, but don't let that game distract you. The fact that if it wasn't for Matt Turner just almost putting a Tim Howard kind of performance like against Brazil, they probably would have lost that game by multiple goals. This defense has been horrendous for the U.S. coming into Copa America, and I know it didn't show a lot in the game against Bolivia, even though there were a couple times I even mentioned in the review there was some sketchy turnover that I saw the U.S. of course committed that they got to watch out for. Oh, it was definitely in full displays in this game against Panama. I mean, just the amount of turnovers in the midfield is just absolutely horrendous. And then I think it just kind of got worse in the second half, and that this is also where the blame for Greg Berhalter will continue with the fact that he decided to bring in Cameron Vickers into to the game, and yeah, it turns out that obviously did not worked out that well whatsoever. But yeah, just overall that this defense that defending usually is one of the strong point for the U.S. for a while. For a while, it's always been the attack that's been the big question. But now his last couple of games, especially in this one against Panama, that is a huge concern. And now what they need to do in terms of moving on is most likely they're gonna have to beat Uruguay on Monday to move on into the next round. And even though if Uruguay is gonna maybe play their second team, if they do wrapped up and getting 3 points in this game against Bolivia, and they pretty much will have almost nothing to play for besides maybe getting securing themselves the top seed, which I think they would have probably got it either way, even if the U.S. does beat Uruguay. But again, I mean, even if Uruguay play their second team, I mean they have a decent second team as well, and that again, the U.S. the fact that the defense has been really poor throughout coming into this tournament, and now it's once again in full displays against Panama. Yeah, this is really concerning. And what's also kind of concerning is the fact that Matt Turner, of course, went down with an injury. Even Horvat, of course, comes in. Now, obviously, I know some people will blame even Horvat as part of this, and in some way, he is. I think that goal that he conceded, I think that probably should have been saved. If Matt Turner probably isn't in there, maybe Turner would have saved that. But either way, that's always a tough spot for a goalkeeper to just come in when you're not expected. And I know Ethan Horvat has had some great hero moment, but there's a reason why he's a second choice goalkeeper. He doesn't feature with the U.S. for a very long time. So yeah, again, it's something that this is definitely concerning. And again, if the U.S. does not make it out of the Copa America group stage, you gotta say that there's got to be changes that's gonna be made, and obviously Greg Berhalter will be that number one kind of target in terms of potentially getting fire after this, because again, there were some big expectation for the U.S. coming into this Copa America, not only to move on into the knockout round, but actually do well in this tournament, because this is a tournament that will really test them and prepare themselves from what happening in 2026 when they play the World Cup in home soil. And to have this kind of performance, and with the way that they potentially get themselves knocked out of this tournament, um, uh, this tournament, yeah, this is definitely really concerning. Now, moving on, and now let's talk about some of the news video. And again, it was quite an extensive recap in terms of talk about the game between the U.S. and Panama. But now talk about some of the news that has happened in this past week. So with the way that I know, still the Euros and Copa America is going on, but there's definitely started becoming some transfer rumors, especially with the window is about to open on the 4th of July. So first of all, we want to talk about San Diego FC, and that there is actually a conflicted source suggesting that San Diego FC was going to hire Bob Bradley as their first head coach, and now there's some sources are saying that that's not going to happen. Now that's going to be interesting to see if Bob Bradley is going to be hired for San Diego FC. Obviously, Bob Bradley, we saw what happened when he was taking charge of Toronto FC, and we thought that was probably going to be a good move considering what he's done with LAFC. See, when LAFC came into the league, obviously it didn't quite work out for Toronto, but now it seems like San Diego is trying to do the same thing again. San Diego is almost in some way kind of kind of carbon copy LAFC moving expansion season. LAFC brought in a big name Mexican player in Carlos Vela. San Diego followed that suit by bringing a big name Mexican player in Chucky Lozano, and it seems like now they're gonna appoint Bob Bradley as their first head coach. But again, it seems like there's conflicting sources are saying that it's gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. By the way, obviously eventually San Diego is going to name their head coach. I mean, they still got a while before their expansion season, but we're getting to the point where as we get closer into the end of the season and into the off season, this is when San Diego is going to start to make some noise, and that we're going to start to find out in terms of who's going to be the head coach, who's going to be the sporting director, and also more players being filled in this team. And then let's also not forget about the expansion draft that we're going to have this off season. We're going to see who they're going to pick in the expansion draft this off season. Now, Toluca, they have announced that they have signed New York Red Bulls midfielder Frankie Amaya for about $4 million. That's a good investment the Red Bulls, of course, have got. But that being said, this is definitely a bit of a loss for the Red Bulls, especially Amaya has been a very pivotal point for this Red Bull side. And again, this is something that we're starting to see more and more nowadays, where MLS teams are not afraid in terms of selling players down to Liga MX, and that we also have seen it before where MLS teams are not afraid to sign Liga MX players as well. I wonder maybe a lot of that is because of the partnership that we're starting to see with MLS and Liga MX, and especially the whole Leeds Cup situation. But either way, it's a good investment for the Red Bulls, though again, it is going to be a bit of a loss to lose one of their best midfielder in Frankie Maya, and we'll see who are they going to be replaced in that spot. Now, speaking of midfielders, so it was announced that FK Partizan had won the Carvin Arriaga sweepstakes. So Carvin Arriaga has been linked with multiple clubs lately. I think one of the clubs that he was linked was with Kaiserslautern, but now it seems like he's going to be signing with Partizan instead, and for a pretty cheap price too. 500K is the amount that FK Partizan is going to pay Minnesota to sign Carvin Arriaga. Though I will say that is still they did get a good return at it, because I think when Minnesota signed Carvin Arriaga, I think it was like only like $100,000, which is gonna go down as one of the biggest bargain we've seen in the MLS team got for a midfielder. But it's also important to note that 500K does include add-ons. I'm not quite exactly sure how much the sell-on fee is gonna be, but should be a good amount if he turns out to do well with FK Partizan. But like what I said about the Red Bulls losing Amaya and how that's going to be a bit of a hole to fill in the midfield, it's the same thing for Minnesota. I would say Minnesota probably have a bigger hole to fill losing their midfielder compared to the Red Bulls, because we've seen so far with Kareem Arriaga, he's been playing the midfield but also playing at defense at times. He's just such a vital part of this team, and I get that. Yes, eventually you're going to lose some promising player overseas. That's just how MLS, of course, would work. But this is going to be a big loss for this Minnesota team, especially of how they've been playing lately. That they just have not been playing relatively well, and this is where I've said many times before, they need reinforcement. They don't need. I mean, it's good to see outbounding transfer, and they started to prove that they are one of those teams that they can develop some young players either from Central America or South America and potentially develop them overseas. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Bungie Longwane might be the next one, or even Joseph Rosales too. I mean, between those two Hondurans, it's incredible how well that Minnesota has been able to develop them. But unfortunately, when you do decide to develop these good young players, eventually Europe is going to become calling, and there's going to be teams that has come knocking on the door to try to get those players. And yeah, this is where it's all about replacing them, and we'll see whether or not if Minnesota can do so heading into the summer that desperately needs some reinforcement to improve this team. Now, Atlanta United, they have reported they're gonna set to finally cash in on the Thiago Almada sweepstakes. So again, for a while we were questioning where exactly is Thiago Almada is going to go. Well, it seems like he's gonna be going to Eagle Football Club, which includes a stint with Botafogo before joining either Crystal Palace and Leon. All three of those teams, of course, are owned by Eagle Football Club, and that it seems like the outbound transfer is going to be around $20 million. Now, considering the fact that Atlanta paid Thiago Almada for $16 million, and considering the fact that a couple of months ago when there was talks and transfer fee could be as high as $30 million. Yeah, again, this is where again it could be tricky when you of course decide to move on one of your more important player, because on one hand you want to get the maximum profit when you decide to sell off those players, and that's kind of what Atlanta has been kind of the pioneer and the textbook example of how to do so. But also you want to make sure that you don't want to lose your best player as well. Maybe you can just try to hang on for him just for a little more so that the price can increase. But there's also a chance that it might not be the case. It could be a chance if the players can kind of go through a drop before him, and I think Thiago Almada has definitely done so this season. It hasn't been as good as what we saw last season, and now the price, of course, has dropped as a result. But still, $20 million is still a lot of money. I mean, I think that's the second most expensive outbound transfer in MLS history. Of course, Atlanta has the most expensive outbound transfer, the Miguel Almiron $27 million that Newcastle United paid a couple of years ago, is still the most expensive outbound transfer in MLS history. And again, for a long time, I always said that Thiago Mata is kind of like that Miguel Almiron player. Eventually, is going to sell off to Europe for a big amount of money. And while this is not exactly him going to Europe first, he's actually going to go to Brazil before potentially going to England or France, depending on which club he's going to join. It is still definitely a big transfer, and that again, Atlanta United continue to show that they are a prime destination of developing some young player, especially a young South American player, and eventually can sell them off for a huge amount of money. Now, moving on. So, FC Dallas have also announced that they have transferred Jose Maloto to Spartak Subotica in the Serbian league. Now, this is one that, for Jose Maloto, he just never really quite worked out with FC Dallas. So, this is kind of an interesting one. The fact that now he's going to make his jump to Europe, and that, it's not really to a team that is well known. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard of Spartak Subotica before, or I mentioned their name in this News of the Week episode. And if there's any fans of watching this, I mean, I apologize that I don't recognize you. But again, there are some teams that are very unknown, especially in these lower leagues. That there are teams that you just never heard about. So we'll see how that, of course, will work out. More times or not, when I see that happen, it doesn't really quite work out for that player. They could make their return to MLS very soon, but we'll see how this is going to work out for Jose Maluto. Maybe just a change of scenery for him to maybe get some more minutes and continue to develop his career. Now, the Colorado Rapids, they have rejected a $4 million bid for Canadian international defender Moses Bombito from Olympique Lyon. Now, obviously, Moses Bombito, he has just had an incredible season so far with the Rapids. I mean, he is definitely one of the more hotly prospect in MLS that could potentially be sold off for a big amount of money, and especially with him having such a great season with Colorado, that he's now actually playing with the Canadian national team, and even playing regular minutes with the Canadian national team, even in Copa America. So there's definitely some interest in Europe now that potentially he's gonna be going there, but obviously the Rapids feel like, yeah, we're gonna just try to hold on to one of our more important pieces. I mean, he is a very important pieces in that defense, and the Rapids this season they've definitely been much more improved in the defense compared to what we saw last season, and part of that is because Bombito has just been an absolute rock for this Rapids defense, and it's no surprise that there are some European team that is calling as a result of that. Now, Fafa Pico has announced that he actually wants to return to the East Coast this summer, and he is actually looking to request a trade away from the Vancouver Whitecaps in the summer. What is it with the Vancouver Whitecaps in terms of players that doesn't want to play for the team? Like, I mean, Vancouver is a beautiful full city. I mean, I've been there a couple of times. I don't know why I've see players doesn't want to play there, and especially it's not the first time we have seen the Whitecaps have lost their players just because the fact that they want to maybe go be closer to home, which I think that might be the case for Fafa Pico, and not the other situation that we saw of a certain Canadian goalkeeper that is actually playing for the Canadian national team right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure Whitecaps fans are still fuming about what Crepeau said, and that it's no wonder why every time when the Timbers play the Whitecaps fan basically the hell out of Maxine Crepeau. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see whether if he is gonna be going back to the East Coast, and we'll see which team in the Eastern Conference are going to try to get him. I would not be surprised if the Union could be the team to get him because hey, he worked out well when he was with the Union a couple of years ago, so this would make sense, especially with the way that the Union are desperately need some attacking pieces or just any reinforcement right now of what has just been a disastrous season for them. So we'll see how this, of course, will go. Now, Austin FC have announced they have signed Ukrainian international center back Alexander Swiatok from Dnipro. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because he is 30 years old, and that it's a bit of risky trying to sign a player over for seas for when they're hitting into their 30s. I mean, I know center backs have longer shelf life in terms of their career, but it's a bit of a risky kind of move. It could go well at times, and then it could also not go well at times. But knowing the fact that Austin needs some defensive reinforcement again, they've been needing the defensive reinforcement for a while now. We'll see how this, of course, would turn out for them. And then moving on in terms of the next news, and actually now talk about some more signings. Well, actually, I started with talk about Austin making a signing. The Colorado Rapids have officially signed Rafael Navarro to a permanent deal. I mean, this is not a big surprise. I mean, I even said that kind of surprised the Rapids left it so late for them to eventually sign him on a permanent deal and made this loan a permanent deal as well because Navarro has just been incredible for the Rapids this season. I mean, he's no longer a penalty kick merchant like what we saw last season. He's a guy that it feels like ever since he scored that first open play goal, he has been a man in form for the Rapids. I mean, he's been scoring almost every single game for this Rapids team, and it's again just a no-brainer the fact that they decided to make him a permanent deal. And this is one of the rare times the Rapids have actually got a hit in terms of getting themselves a hit on in terms of a DP deal instead of just a huge bust as we've seen in previous year. Now, Chivas, they are actually looking to sign a couple of MLS players such as Brian Gutierrez, Diego Luna, Omir Fernandez, and Memo Rodriguez. Now, those are definitely some very interesting names that Chivas, of course, are targeting towards, and especially of course some of those players has some Mexican heritage, as that of course is the rule of Chivas. They have to sign a player that either has Mexican heritage or actually from Mexico. But yeah, those are kind of interesting names out there. There's definitely some good names out there. I mean, Brian Gutierrez has been very good with the Chicago Fire. Diego Luna has just been incredible ever since he burst to the scene with RSL. And again, I also want to make a quick note that the Quakes actually had Diego Luna before trading him into to RSL. Yeah, that's another example of the Quakes letting go of a good player. That yeah, well back then it wasn't known that no commodity that Diego Luna is going to be very good, but man, he has been really good in these last two seasons for RSL. So I'm pretty sure RSL is not really not going to let go of him that easily. Omir Fernandez, a guy that just went to the Colorado Rapids. He's been okay during his time with the Rapids. Hasn't been impressive. And then Memo Rodriguez, of course, are playing actually regular minutes now with Sporting KC. More playing the midfield role, which is kind of weird because when I saw him a couple of years ago with the Dynamo, he was their main number 9. So that's kind of an interesting career change for him, shifting from that being the number 9 now more to a midfield role. But either way, should be interesting to see whether or not Chivas could get some of these players. I mean, they already got K Cal from the Quakes, and it turns out that yeah, the Quakes, yeah, they definitely made made the right decision in terms of letting go of K Cal and cashing into that because I haven't heard anything about K Cal during his time with Chivas other than the fact that he did play well in that one game against a Canadian Premier League team, but after that, I haven't heard anything from him, which means that he's probably not doing very well with Chivas right now, and the Quakes might have just got an absolute steal and maybe some highway robbery of selling KCal for $4 million. Even though KCal once again shows some of his problem that he has with the Quakes of being a guy that has potential to be a goal scorer, but just never fulfilled that potential. Now, Brighton, they are announcing that they're making a bid to sign Diego Gomez from Inter Miami. Now, this is going to be an interesting one because Diego Gomez has been very good this season with Inter Miami, and it's unfortunate that he's been out with injuries. So we'll see whether or not if Inter Miami decide to let go of him, and especially how important he's been with the team. I'm pretty sure Inter Miami is not gonna as or not gonna let go of Diego Gomez unless it's a big amount of money, and especially if it's a Premier League team that has come calling. You gotta have to jack up that price because that's kind of the rules whenever a Premier League team decided to scoop in to trying to sign a player. And then moving on, now talk about some of the injuries news. So Matt Miazga has now undergone successful PCL meniscus surgery, and that the timeline, of course, is unknown, but most likely he's pretty much going to be out for the season. And again, it's unfortunate what happened in that game against the Quakes, where he just kind of banged into to the goal post after he slipped there. And obviously, I'm pretty sure Cincinnati fans are still very upset about the playing condition at PayPal Park, and I don't blame them because the playing condition at PayPal Park has been poor ever since day one. Even with the new grass that they install, it hasn't helped whatsoever. But yeah, very unfortunate to see Matt Miazga potentially done for the season. And also, there's no doubt that Cincinnati desperately need a defender. I mean, I think that's going to be their top priority this summer, especially with the way that pretty much all their defender that they have in their depth chart are pretty much injured or done for the season. And in the case of Matt Miazga, that might be the case too. And speaking of a player that's done for the season, Thomas Shankalai, he undergoes season-ending knee injury, so yeah, he's done for the season as well. That's definitely a bit of a blow for New England. I mean, the good news for New England is that they are starting to get some of their better player back. But the bad news is they just lost one of their more important attacking player in Thomas Shankalai. It's almost like the Revs must have a curse right now, at least in these last couple of seasons, where it just feels like they just cannot get away from the injury bugs, and that just as they thought that there's some players that return, and not to mention them having a bit of a revitalized period, at least in the last couple of games. Now Thomas Shankly is going to be out for the season, and that's definitely going to be a bit of a blow for this Revs team, especially on the attack. And then Roger Espinoza has officially announced his retirement after 16 years of playing career. No doubt I'm going to make a career video about Roger Espinoza. Might be as soon as next week as well, or maybe even tomorrow if I have the time to do so. Well, actually, no. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow because I have to watch the NYCFC versus Orlando City game. I have to do a review of that game and also do the preview for the weekend's action. But most likely I'll probably make it next week, though that is a probably because there's going to be some midweek games because of the 4th of July weekend. But what a career Roger Espinoza has had. It's going to go down as one of the best defensive midfielder of all time. Definitely the one of the best player that ever played for Sporting KC, and a guy that there's no doubt he's going to get a statue outside of Children Mercy Park um, any time soon of an incredible career that he has with Sporting KC. And then MLS have announced that they actually have announced their match attendance has went up by 7%. Now, big part of that obviously is because of the Messi mania that's taking part of MLS, and I even did a video talk about the attendance and how you can see all the attendance has been pretty much up for every single team. And again, part of that is because when Messi does play, especially when Inter Miami travel on the road, it's always a packed house, no matter who they play against, and we're definitely seeing that too. Now, obviously, when the Messi mania is over, once Messi decides to announce his retirement, not only from Inter Miami but also in his professional career, since he mentioned that Inter Miami is going to be his last team that he's going to play in his professional career. Where that Messi mania does come to an end, will the attendance maybe suffer a bit of dip? And especially with the way that the World Cup is going to happen in 2026 in a couple of years, you would assume maybe that will be a moment for the league to trying to capitalize, to trying to get the casual fan to stay within and get some interest in the league. I mean, I hope so too, because this league has come a long way since it first first came to existence in 1996, and that it's great to see the attendance will continue to go up, even though I know it maybe is a bit skewed because of the whole Messi mania that is going on. And then lastly, in terms of the last news in the news of the week before we do the quick preview of the NYCFC versus Orlando City game, MLS will release retro third jersey on July 16th for every single team, and this is going to be very interesting. I actually can't wait to see that this is gonna happen because I already made a video talk about some of my ideas in terms of what each team's third jerseys could be. And so I just realized my computer is running out of battery, so let me just make sure I charge this. Let me just make sure I plug this so that my this video doesn't just end abruptly there. But yeah, as I said, this is gonna be very interesting to see how the retro third jersey is gonna be. I already did a video talk about some of the ideas that each of these teams' third jersey can be, and we already know that coming into this season, MLS is planning to release a third jersey, but the fact that they're going retro with it, yeah, that just makes it even more cool, and that I'll be interested to see how each of these retro third jersey is going to be. Look, there's no doubt that I think some of these retro third jerseys going to pay homage, especially to those teams those teams that came into the league back in '96. They're going to have a retro look into it, and I know the Quakes have already done a retro 1974 jersey to pay homage to the 1974 team in their 50th anniversary. I would not be surprised if the retro third jersey will be a San Jose Clash kind of inspiration jersey. I already have a San Jose Clash throwback kind of it's not really a jersey, but it's more of kind of like a t-shirt and a jersey, kind of like a jersey of you, as you of course would say, and that of course is from Mitchell and Ness, and Mitchell and Ness has done a good job in terms of these for black jersey, and I won't be surprised they have their fingerprints all over designing these retro third jersey that's going to come out in the league on July 16th. And then finally, now that we finished all about news of the week, we're gonna do the quick review, or the quick preview, that is NYCFC versus Orlando City. So this game, of course, is going to happen tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Again, I beg the league to bring back more Friday games. I know NYCFC has definitely done their diligence of having at least Friday's game on Saturday, or not Saturday, I'm sorry, but in June, that is. Well, I really hope that more teams are gonna do that, because I think people are kind of a little bit frustrated and kind of sick of seeing all the games are happening on Saturday, and especially in a compact schedule like what we've seen in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, in terms of the all-time meeting, 8, 9, and 7 in favor of NYCFC. Last five head-to-head matchup was a 2-0 home win that NYCFC had against Orlando. Before, it was a 1-1 draw between both of these teams. A 2-0 home win that NYCFC had against Orlando. Before, Orlando did win 2-1 against NYCFC, and then NYCFC winning 5-0 against Orlando City. And there's no doubt that NYCFC desperately need a win, because yeah, they're heading for the wrong direction, at least in the last couple of weeks, after just an incredible month that they had in May. Yeah, it's been a bit of a rough June, especially the last couple of games, and they're playing against an Orlando City side that got probably the best win of the season against the Chicago Fire, and now we'll see whether they can build this up on the road, which is again a place that Orlando has done a very good job, at least this season. And I mentioned many times before how that this them playing on the road and getting resort on the road and actually look decent when they're playing on the road is really the only reason why they're still in this playoff contention. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this news of the week episode, and also the review of the USA versus Panama and the preview of the NYCFC versus Orlando City game. Again, it's a bit of a long video because of that, but if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below, and also make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.